me your name and your date of birth.
Hi, I'm Gerry Fialka. I was born March 15, 1953. That's the Ides of March in Flint, Michigan. I first came to Venice after being in Flint, Michigan from my birth in 53, then 8 years in Ann Arbor, studying film and art. I thought, wow, why don't I go to LA? Because someone had an LA Weekly in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and I looked at this newspaper and it had all these cool events in film, and I thought, wow, well, I have experience with film, so I want to move to LA, and a few of my friends had moved here, and they said, Venice is the spot to go to. One of the first places I actually went to look at, to rent in Venice was a two-door garage, and I've been there for 43 years. I consider myself a Venetian, yeah.
So tell me about coming to Venice in 1980 and what your experience was like when you first arrived and what your perspective was.
Well, I moved here to sort of get in the film business and music business, so I worked at a film festival called Filmex. So my background is in experimental film and art and music. So I found Venice to be filled with artists, musicians, and like-minded people. And I felt that my job with Filmex, this film festival, really helped get me in tune with what Venice was, because they were hiring the street musicians off the boardwalk, like Jingles, to play at their parties. So I was really getting a sense of what the boardwalk Venice community was, and then what the other side of Venice was. Once, I learned the boardwalk culture and the community it evokes, which is small town feeling. I mean, Venice is very unique. Why would Venice become the biggest tourist attraction in LA over Universal City in Disneyland? Because it's free and it's freer. The atmosphere is freer. Everyone is normal in Venice is a song my wife sings, Susie Williams. So we treat everyone with the same respect, or we hope everyone is treated with the same respect. Venice is along the boardwalk. Venice is along the beach. There's something magical about the ocean. I have people who live in the Mission District in San Francisco, and it reeks of a feeling like Venice, a freedomness like Venice. But there's no ocean and clean air swooping in. You're in the urban setting, womp. Abbott Kinney came here and made an amazing amusement park town, and it spawned a lot of great things, which I can inventory. Then it turned into a drunken sailor town. Now I will tell you, because I've got to credit the people who have taught me Venice history. In Elaine Alexander is one of the first people who really taught me great Venice history. And she's very important. And I sort of take all the things I've learned from my list of all the other major Venice historians, and I put them in my own words. So if I get something that's a hair off, I'm not saying to Elaine, I'm making bad on what you taught me. I'm just elaborating it, and that's what imagination is a human. She basically said to me, or taught me, that Abbott Kinney's amusement park died. He died and the pier burned, and then it turned into a drunken sailor town. But there were elders who were coming here because of the weather. But the elders couldn't walk the streets because it was a drunken sailor town until the Beats came. Now, most people don't know what the Beats are. It's a literature movement. The late 50s is when the Gas House and Venice West Cafe became a place where people could go do poetry, art, and be creative, low budget. It's the history of all places where the ghetto is where the artists go because the rents are low, and then the hipsters say, oh, well, we can sell ice cream for a lot more, and blue jeans for a lot more people and turn the ghetto into a hipster land. This never happened in Venice because, well, it did to a point, but this is because the people who built Abbot Kinney's amusement park were, let's say, black and Hispanic. He hired them and gave them homes. And those homes were passed down generation after generation, 5 generations. You've had these people who stayed there, which is called the ghetto or barrio, or as you told me, because I forgot, the Oakwood section. So that is a phenomenon that was still there, so the rent still stayed kind of low. The literature movement that Jack Kerouac, Allen Ginsberg, Ferlinghetti, Rex Roth, they're propagating environmental concerns. So this is in 1962. So this is an amazing thing that the Beats were enlightening us to, was environmental concerns, freedom of thought, breaking the molds of how you write a poem, and jazz, which is the music of improvisation, comedy. So basically what happened, to follow the thread with Elaine teaching me that, the elders couldn't walk the streets. The Beats moved in and made it safe for the elders to walk the streets. Then after the Beats sort of merged into the proto-hippie era, then it's endless from there to now. So your question was, how's it changed? It's all changed for the better in the good, but there's little things I could pick on that aren't worth talking about. I'll talk about one thing that the proto-hippie of America did. This man was Eden Abe. His last name spells like Abez. He wrote a song called Nature Boy that made Nat King Cole career pretty much. It's his signature song. Nat King Cole's very good, and a lot of other things made his career, but this song was his song. Eden was homeless in Venice at a point. So as soon as they started kicking people off the boardwalk because they're homeless, I said, you better be careful, because you may be kicking a songwriter who's going to write the greatest love song in the history of the world. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I will quote the line from Eden Abe's song, Nature Boy. The greatest thing you'll ever learn is to love and be loved in return. Now that's community, that's reciprocal. You give out love and you receive it. Venice West Cafe, 58 to 66. Then Sponto, a guy, his name's Mark Kornfeld, he took the name Sponto by combining spontaneous and pronto. Sponto Gallery, if you've ever lived in Venice and not been to Sponto, it was an amazing, magical place from 84 to 2008. So Sponto knew I was showing films at the Midnight Special bookstore, and he says, you got to show films here. And I says, great. So from 2000 to 2008, I showed films at Sponto Gallery under the moniker 7 Dudley Cinema. I put on Jazz Funk Fest there. I did all kinds of events there. And one of them was the dumpster diving fashion show. So it was clothes that were dumpster dove in Venice, and we had models walk up and down the aisle. And it is an amazing film, and it's been lost because this is things that happen in the archival world. People like Mike Sakamoto are helping me get my scattered archive together, and we've finally got this tape that's so old digitized, and we're going to premiere it this year at the Venice Film Festival. Much like what Orson Welles and Andy Warhol and Agnes Varda did. They inspired me because they're the roots of my community, using my community to make their films. Well, how can I take that farther? So I've done that through my films, Brother Side of the Wake, through my film festival, Pixel This. So we celebrate films that were shot in Venice. So early on, I showed you all the clips of all the known films that were shot in Venice. I want to see what people are doing that is more real and down to earth, sort of like what the Venice Heritage Museum wants to do, is show you the community, not what other people come in and say, this is what Venice is. Venice isn't a place, it's a poem. T.S. Eliot said, poetry is outing your inner dialogue. So there's something inside us that we can get out, but we don't know how to get it out. You might get it out by being a cameraman at public access, or you may get it out by being an interviewer for Venice Museum, Heritage Museum. You may get it out by being a poet at Beyond Baroque, or you may get it out by being an author of an article for the Venice Beachhead. This is an important newspaper, and dig it, we got 3 papers in Venice: Venice Living, the Argonaut, and Venice Beachhead. How many small towns have 3 papers?
Will you talk a little bit about the Venice Beachhead and your own experiences with it?
Sure. I was really lucky because my wife wrote for them for a while. It welcomes everyone to write. You don't have to be a big writer. I got something I want to say. I've got a poem I want to publish. And over the years, I was just too busy and I wasn't into it, and then I got in this groove, I don't know, a couple years ago, and I just said, well, I'll write an article for every beachhead. So I've just really been driven, much like Carol doing this. Okay, well, how can we preserve Venice history? I'm going to facilitate this screening. You set up some sort of plan, some sort of sensibility. How can we consolidate this? Eric Alberg does all the work on the beachhead, and there's a collective that puts it together, but one person usually gets behind it. I don't ever see myself living anywhere else because, in essence, I don't think you can get closer to what heaven could be than Venice. I mean, Venice is heaven to me. The reverberations of Venice will continue forever and ever.